welcome everybody to another edition of the Hurry Up Live. I'm your host, Adam. Let's get into it. So, this is going to be our state of the giant roster building for the New York Giants episode. I know a lot of people, you know, are talking about the off season, and so I thought I'd jump in. Last week we were doing a state of the franchise, and I kind of didn't do a great job with you guys getting that out there. So we're going to go over the roster, give you some pre-combine thoughts, being that the combine is basically a week away. So thank you, Mac, for dropping into the channel. This is the Hurry Up Live. I will drop the link in a little bit for anyone who wants to call in and discuss. Shouldn't be too long of a show. Thinking about maybe an hour and a half, but just wanted to give a quick state of the Giant update. Or state of the NFL. We can talk about whatever you want in terms of sports in the NFL, what's going on. I mean, the combine's happening next Thursday. Let's just double check on the calendar just to make sure we got the dates right. Yes, not necessarily next week, but 2 weeks from now. Actually, no, it starts the 3rd on Thursday. So, yeah, next week at this time, the 3rd through the 6th is going to be Combine prime time. I don't really like the Combine at prime time. I really don't. It's like the draft. When I was growing up, I loved the draft on Saturday and Sunday because you were locked in for 7 or 8 hours. I know it seemed like a crazy thing to do on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, but hey, when you have NFL draft talk going on, that's like you want to be left alone. You want a nice sandwich, maybe a nice hoagie sandwich, and get down. But the combine is going to be at prime time, which is basically, let's be honest, it's for ad revenue. It's not for anything else. It's for money. That's all it is, for money. And when you have money and when you want money, that's what they give you is a prime time thing. That's all they're doing it for. It's nothing. They think they can get more eyeballs, which is true. They're going to get more eyeballs. What's really to sell ad revenue. And this year in the combine is, I know the players are complaining about some restrictions, but we're not going to get into that because that's not really our cup of tea here. We're just here to give you the state of the Giants. So let's go to down the roster. So the Giants, obviously, have had the quarterbacks have had a lot of influx in the last few weeks. Last few months of since the season ended January 10th. We are now February 24th. So the last month and a half or so, a lot has happened, and a lot's going to continue to happen up until about August when this teams start to hit. Can you believe it? August. It seems so far away, but at the same time it seems so close. And the first thing that kicks off the off season is the combine. And so the combine is a great measuring stick for a lot of people, especially for the Giants. A team like the Giants, they just did the Senior Bowl, they did all the HBCU games, they did the East-West Shrine games. So they're collecting a lot of data. If you guys haven't checked it out and you're a Giant fan, you should go to Giants.com. They have an episode of Giants Life. It gives you a little behind the scenes of how it is to be a GM in the NFL. Especially for the Giants. And I like Shane, and a soundbite that he asked is, hey, did we go see the Fordham kid? See, the Fordham schools in the vicinity of the Giants facility. So that to me tells me he's going to be looking under every rock, under every stone to make sure he's getting every piece of information that you can. And hopefully Rutgers will have a few players either invited to camp or, at least sniffed around to see if we can get a couple undrafted free agents from Rutgers. I mean, there may not be a lot. Maybe even Monmouth. Who knows? I don't know how far his reach is going to go. I don't know where he wants to look. But for me, I think, you need to unearth everything. I know this is an early morning, show, and some people, may not be listening. But, hey, I'm doing this just for fun and just to get out there and, just to be part of the show. So if you guys want, in a little bit, like I said, you can give me a comment, leave a comment. Please subscribe if you like what you hear. But leave a comment in the comment section. We can talk about a prospect if you have thoughts on them. There's some notes we can compare, that we can go over and stuff like that. So give me your thoughts. But right now, let's just dive into the roster update. So right now, the current roster for quarterbacks is Daniel Jones and Davis Webb. Now, they're going to need more quarterbacks than that, especially coming up into the off season. You're going to need a couple guys as arm throwers. Now, Clayton Thorsten and I think a few other guys have been taken from the Giants roster. Good job, Mac. Thanks for listening to me. I hope you I hope you're enjoying it while you have a few minutes. But Daniel Jones and Davis Webb. There's Jake Fromm, which is he's an exclusive rights free agent. I do believe. Let me just make sure I can double check that for you. Yeah, exclusive rights free agent, which basically means he's on the Giants roster. I doubt anyone's going to sign him, and I doubt he's not going to sign his offer sheet with the Giants to be here since he's already been in Brian Dable's system. Makes sense, but they're going to need quarterbacks. They will, whether they bring in a Trubisky, whether they bring in the Mariota, whether they draft a guy in the in the later rounds of the draft, they're going to bring a guy in. And that's what they need to do. They need to bring a guy in. They need to bring in somebody who is going to either challenge Daniel Jones or make him think twice about the job. Now, Davis Webb. We talked about Daniel Jones. I'm not going to get into him. If he's a starter, great. I'm going to back him. I'm going to support him. We've gone ad nauseum of whether or not to get rid of him or not. My take is if we're going to punt the season and have a bad year, we might as well, kick it down the road. Give him an opportunity to do something, better with his days, right? With his time, because I don't want to waste the guy's time if he's not going to be here. And I know some people are like, well, we'll wait to see if they get the 5th-year option. Okay, well, that's great, but that still doesn't mean he's going to be here, right? Because the 5th-year option, all it does is give you a $21 million cap hit for him, right? So that's great if he does well, but then if he does poorly and you give him the 5th-year option, now you're on the hook for $21 million. And who knows? Are you going to draft a quarterback behind him? I think you could do the Josh Rosen / Kyler Murray thing, where you basically, you draft another guy behind him because the new regime wants it. I think the new regime needs to give them their time. They need to have their quarterback, not a guy pushed on them. But, again, we're not going to talk too much into Daniel Jones because I know it's a sore subject with many around Giant universe. But Davis Webb obviously was with the Giants before. I think he's more of a TA, teacher's assistant, or basically a professor of Brian Dable. So he's going to basically come in here, help with the language, help with the reads, help with what's going on to kind of prepare Daniel Jones. Remember, Daniel Jones won't be throwing a football for the Giants until August, and he may not play the 2 preseason games that are allotted to him, right? So we don't want to assume anything, but to me, you're going to need camp bodies. That's why I think people need to realize that when you have camp bodies, you need to have those bodies with you, so you can, so you can, have somebody throw for you. What's up, Jeffrey? How you going? How you doing, man? What's going on? Thanks for tuning in on this Thursday morning. I know it's crazy to have a live, but I thought no one's in the morning, so might as well have a morning show. Eat your breakfast too, get a little football knowledge, a little talk about a little Giant stuff. So anyways, Davis Webb, that's what he's here for. I think you're going to see a guy like Trubisky probably brought in here just to challenge Jones. And then a guy like Jake Fromm, he's again, you need camp bodies. You need 90-man roster by the time training camp happens, right? That is a requirement. That is something you need to do. That's going to be a fluid situation at the back end of the roster. Guys you see here now on futures deals or 1-year contracts may not be here come camp time if they find somebody better or somebody's cut or they're interested in. Remember, they have a player personnel department for a reason, and that reason is to find players to fit their system regardless of what's happening. You know what I mean? So if that's the case, you want to make sure that and see everything. So unearth everything. So Davis Webb may or may not be here the whole season. Heck, he may not even make it into training camp. But remember last year he was a practice squad player for the Bills, and so that tells you all you need to know about that particular player, right? So that particular type of guy is exactly what we're talking about here. He's just here to bring and you're going to see a lot more players like that. You're going to see a lot more guys coming down the pike in terms of how we look at things, right? And how they are. Big Cass, what's going on, Big Cass? How you doing? Thanks for listening in for a few minutes. Sub up if you haven't subbed up. Subscribe. But anyways, yeah, I'm going to keep going down the list. Now, we'll get to the running backs. Now, the running backs here, and the last thing I'll say about Daniel Jones is this. What up, Giant Opinion Sports? How you doing? Is, nobody's safe on the roster. Everybody is, up for grabs if you want. Come in with the best offer. Giants are open for business. So if you're open for business, that's what you need to do, right? You need to make sure that you entertain every offer. You need to entertain every offer. So, anyways, we'll move to the running backs. Now, we have Saquon Barkley on the roster, or these are guys that are under contract. There might be some more guys that are on the roster, such as Antonio Williams. I don't know what his number is, but he wanted number 4. We'll see if he gets 44. You have Antonio Williams, you have Gary Brightwell, you have Devontae Booker, and you have Saquon Barkley. Now, B-Cass, my guy, how you doing? So, basically, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Booker, Gary Brightwell, and Antonio Williams are currently the running backs on the Giants. Now, let's go to Antonio Williams. He's a guy, again, Joe Shane brings in, who I think, has a little power to him. He's about 215 pounds, from North Carolina, runs downhill, knows the system, was an undrafted rookie free agent in 2020. And now he's on the Giants right now. He has a couple rushing touchdowns. He's received the ball in the backfield. He's done a few things in the NFL. Now, is he going to have a lot of burn here? I have no idea. I have no idea if he's going to be here. But he at least knows the system. So again, he's going to be like an aide to help out with the running back. Now, Barkley, who's been a sore topic of discussion, is one of those guys who is very polarizing. There are some people who absolutely love him, don't get rid of him, and there are guys like me who are like, hey, you know what? I love Barkley, but I'm not loyal to the player. I'm loyal to the New York Giants, and if they decide to move on from him, well, they decide to move on from him. You know what I mean? I can't be upset if they do that. It's one of those things where, you just gotta take the best offer you can get and keep it moving, because again, we're talking about long-term future here. Do I want to keep Barkley? Yes, for the success of the quarterback, yes. But we've lost without him. We lost with him, and we can lose without him. So that's basically what I would say. It's like, if you decide to move on from Saquon Barkley, now would be the time to do it. I know a lot of people want to wait maybe to the beginning of the training camp or beyond, or wait till the trade deadline. But if you're in a situation where people need to understand that this is a new system coming on both sides of football, it's going to take some time to learn. Think of learning a new language, right? Think of how hard it was for you to learn a new language. Not only is it chance for learn a whole new language, but you also have to get acclimated to a new job. You're not the big man on campus anymore. You don't have the same loyalties because the guys that brought you in here are not here anymore. And that's important to realize. Like, there are no loyalties to any of the guys that are on the roster currently, except for, I would say, basically 4 players. But, one of the things that I look forward to is the offseason to see these moves. And what Joe Shane, sees. Joe Shane can say, hey, you know what, I don't necessarily think we need to have a star running back taking up $7.5 million because, hey, we did it by running back by committee last year. They ran for over 2,000 yards last year with a myriad of backs in the NFL. So in the Bills team. So it's one of those things where it's a catch-22, right? Do you want more bites of the apple in terms of draft picks, or do you want to say, hey, we're winning now? Because to me, if you want to rebuild, you have to go through the growing pains of the rebuild, which means you may not win. You may not have the chance to win. And we've been losing with guys like Barkley and Jones for a long time. So, for me, it's like, all right, how do we weigh this option, right? I know that we want to keep the guy because we want to have a good season, and that'll help evaluate a lot of our players. But at the same time, are they going to be guys that are going to be long-term guys here? Are you going to want to tie that much money up into into a running back who may or may not be here, who may not fit your plans? I mean, Barkley fits anybody's plans, let's be honest. He's a great back. I wouldn't compare him to Alvin Kamara. I would call him more of like a Barry Sanders type of back, if you remember him. Kind of a big back that doesn't always run you over, but kind of does spin moves. Giants Opinion Sports says we'll probably get a third in the comp in a couple of years, but obviously you can't worry about the comp picks because you don't know. I don't know the formula, and I don't want to make those assumptions. to make to say, yeah, they're going to get a comp pick or not. They may or may not get a comp pick, but you know what they say, a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush, right? So for me, give me the third round pick or whatever the third round that could escalate into maybe a second round pick depending on incentives, and go from there. And then I'm not saying draft a running back or overlook this guys. They just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing from beyond. As for Devin Booker, we'll move on to Devin Booker. He's a guy that I think could be traded or cut. He had a solid season last year. He's a solid second round pick. Back. If you decide to get rid of Barkley, I would say keep him. But if you don't, you may want to explore the option of cutting him and get a couple $1 million back. Again, he's with the other regime, so when you do that, that doesn't mean that the other regime change. Remember, the eyes aren't on them. They are going to have their evaluations from their previous team and the evaluations given to them from the coaching staff and the pro personnel that have been here. And then they're going to decide moving forward what's the best bet. Remember, the Giants say they want to be $40 million under the cap, which is about $20 million for basically veterans and $20 million if they decide to stay at number 7 for your draft picks. Now, if you look at it like this, right, the Giants are minus $12 million. So they're going to have to get rid of that $12 million plus get under $40 million. So that's a net that they have to get rid of themselves of $52 million. And if you do that, that means that guys are going to be cut from other teams that from this team that you may like or traded. So this is why I'm saying if we don't have a great year because our talent is limited, or we're struggling at the beginning of the year to learn the offense, maybe it is a good time to let your stars go. You know what I mean? And it's funny, Giant Opinion Sports have a great thing. It's funny how some guys stay healthy on their prove deals. Yeah, because you know what? They have nothing to lose. When you have that security blanket of, I'll be here next year, I'm not going to break my back to get back if the team doesn't need me. And again, we'll see what happens. Remember, this team only knows losing. They don't know anything else. They only know losing. So if you're gonna keep a guy around, we lost with you. We'll lose. We'll gladly lose without you. Gary Brightwell, moving on to him. I don't know if he's expendable. I mean, he's expendable. He's not a guy that the Giants need to keep around. Again, he was brought in by the other regime, so we'll see what happens with him. I don't think, again, he's going to long for the team. But let's move on to the wide receivers. Kenny Golladay is the main target. Let's see if he will put together a good season for the $200 million. Again, he's been injured his career. He was brought in as injury. We should have probably had a incentivized contract for him where he could have, earned that $200 million. Right now, he's looking like a guy that needs some help. The next guy we'll talk about real quick is Colin Johnson. Don't think he'll be on the team. To be honest with you, I think he's got some good measurables, but the draft is going to bring in new guys that are probably going to fit the system more. Austin Proehl, Ricky Proehl's son. If you don't know who Ricky Proehl is, go look him up. He used to play for the Rams. He was a decent receiver, had a decent career, played about 16 years in the league. His son is here. He's just a Bills guy. Again, bringing in another guy that know the offense, kind of help out with the team. That's what a lot of these regime guys do. They bring in their own players, they bring in their own guys, and they kind of go from there. Sterling Shepard, tough guy, love him, but not going to be on this team much longer. I just think you give him enough time. He's been injured most of his Giants career. It doesn't really help matters that he blew out his Achilles this year. That really kind of puts him in the injury settlement kind of guy, especially since we need money. Let him get healthy. Let him find his own team. Plus his replacement was over here with Tony. We'll see. I mean, the Giants have had a lot of injuries in their receiving corps. That's why I don't think receivers off the table if they get one in the second, third, or fourth round. That could be there. Look for Christian Watkins to be a guy they might look at, or Alex Pierce in the draft. Guys who are kind of big who will help Daniel Jones. You need a possession receiver in this offense and to help out Kadarius Toney. But we'll get to him. Darius Slayton, again, another guy that don't really care about if he cuts him. Great, you get $2 million. If you don't cut him, who cares? He's here as a cap body and a guy who regressed a lot last season. And that to me is one of the things that, that's one of the things that we talk about is that you need to do something. Darius Slayton, I think, lost confidence in that Redskin game where he dropped the football that would have won it. And I think that also was a precursor to what's happened with the Giants last year. And the last guy is the guy that I'm looking forward to. Just mentioned his name is Kadarius Toney. I know a lot of people are worried about his rap career and everything like that. Guys need to have what's up, Miz? Guys need to have other adventures out there, other avenues to explore. Football is not the only thing that these guys do now. And as long as he comes to play on Sunday, I don't care what he does, as long as he's not in jail or getting in trouble for other reasons. He can rap all he wants. I mean, I've listened to his music, not the greatest rapping stuff. Hey, Kadarius, you get better at both your crafts. But he's the guy that's most exciting to me. He's the guy who would build the offense around. He's my number one in this offense. Kenny Golladay, I know he's number two. I know he's getting $200 million, but he's a number two for me. He's not the guy I'm building the offense around. I really am not. Why? Because I got Kadarius Toney, and he's going to be the gadget player that everyone wants. And Kadarius told me the Giants can cut Sterling Shepard with an injury settlement. He is once he you can designate him as a cap casualty with an injury settlement, which would mean we would eat most of his money and he would be let go. But he's not going to be on this team, and you can't have him on this team if he's not even going to start the season. If he's going to start the season on injured reserve, let's give a guy another chance. But Kadarius Toney is the guy I like a lot, really, and he's a guy that I hope that the Giants can get the ball to. He has a second gear. I went to look up his stats, something along the lines. He ran at the 40-yard dash. He ran a 4.39. Now I don't know how true that is, because again, the pro day wasn't at the combine. The pro day was at his own facility. So sometimes they inflate the numbers a little bit, but 4.38 is a very good combine number. So that probably equates to a 4.4. But that's pretty fast. And he does have a second gear. So let's get him on the field and let's see what he can do. Let's see what he can, bring to the table. He had 420 yards, no touchdowns, and a couple carries. So if he stays healthy, I would see that those numbers explode. Maybe double those numbers, maybe even get to 1,000 yards. I think he can run every route in the route tree. I don't want to just label him as a gadget guy, because I think that takes away from his effectiveness and his ability to play receiver in the NFL. Once you do that and you limit a guy, look at Tyreek Hill. He came in as a gadget guy, but showed that he had a lot more, and then he becomes a weapon on the field. So you want to get a guy like this everywhere, in open space especially. And in Brian Dable's offense, he's going to be a guy that's going to do some jet sweeps, that's going to get the ball over the middle. They're going to try to get him in space one-on-one so he can take a slant route to the house. He does have a second gear. I know people want to compare him to Odell. The only way he's compared to Odell is just by straight physical, just by straight attributes and being a diva kind of receiver. Other than that, Odell is a very good accelerator. He can get to his top speed quickly. Kadarius Toney has a second gear, meaning he's fast, and then he can put on the turbo when he needs to. Tight ends, the Giants have they signed Chris Merrimack again, and then they have Bryson John, Kyle Rudolph, and Caden Smith. Yuck. That's just a yucky, yucky kind of tight end room. I'd rather eat dirt than have those guys as my tight ends. I mean, Rice and John, there's a guy that calls in on Big Blue Kickoff Live who loves this guy. Oh, he's going to be so great. He's 6'7". The dude's from the French-Canadian league. He's not even from around here. So, the fact that he's made the roster again, give me a break. He'll be a cat body. And if he shine, last year was his chance to shine. Guess what? Everybody was injured. You know what happened to him? Pulled a hamstring. Bye-bye. See you later. So, Kyle Rudolph, I'm up in the air with Kyle Rudolph because, because I like what he brings, but the problem is that he's old, right? And he's 31. And, he is a useful player if you use him correctly. And if he's healthy, he'll be a useful player here. I think he might be a cap casualty due to his high cap number, but I wouldn't be surprised if they restructured him and said, hey, well, let's get rid of your contract and bring you back at a lower number, because he is a useful player in the blocking game. He did have the longest play by a skills player for the Giants last year at 60-yard reception, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But see, the thing is, Jeff, and I agree with you, you'd probably rather bring back Ingram, who he and I, you know how I feel about him. But you bring back Ingram, it's what he might command a lot of money. Remember, he has a Pro Bowl in his pocket, so don't think he's not going to tell his agent, "Hey, throw that on the table," because that's going to be it's on your resume. As if you got something on your resume that you've done in your career, in your work life, you want to put that on there. You want people to know, "Hey, man, I've done this," or "Hey, hey, company, I've done this." You don't want to make it look like you've done nothing. So for me, um, I'm not saying that you're going to not address the tight end position. I think people forget. Just because you bring somebody back, they need 90 men on the roster. Right now, they have nobody. Caden Smith, he's a funny guy because there's a lot to like about him, but there's also, he's not a guy that I'm really worried about in terms of keeping. Like if the Giants get rid of him, okay, great. If they keep him, great. If that's what you want to do, if you want to say, hey, we don't want Rudolph, we'll take our chances with Caden Smith, I'm cool with that too. The Giants are going to address this position. Free agency, there's a couple guys I like. There's a Gerald Everett. I like OJ Howard, Njoku. I think we bring in a guy like that. I'm not saying they're going to keep. I did say they're going to keep Rudolph, but I doubt it's going to happen. But it may be one of those things to look at just to see. But if you can get a guy who's younger, like an OJ Howard, perfect. Remember, don't want. Yeah, listen, Giant Opinion Sports, I agree with you. That was a joke of a Pro Bowl. I would never have put him in the Pro Bowl that year. The only Pro Bowls worthy season for Evan Ingram was his rookie year, where he had 8 touchdowns and 700-something yards. So that's, one of those things. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with the tight end position. I'm 50-50 on Caden Smith. Again, if you need 90 players, bring them in. You're going to see a lot of guys in here in these positions for the Giants. They need about 40 players or more because they're going to be getting under the cap. So, it's going to be a lot of guys on here. Now, let's move to the offensive line. Here's a touchy subject as well. Right now, the Giants currently have Ben Bredeson, Nick Gates, Shane Lemieux, Wes Martin, Matt Pert, Andrew Thomas on the roster. Some of their guys that are exclusive rights free agents are Kyle Murphy, who they happen to like last year. They do have Jonathan Harrison as a free agent as well. He was on the injured reserve list, so he might be one of the guys the Giants might bring back. They brought in another tackle in Devery Hamilton. Don't really know much about him, but I can only comment on the guys on the roster and some of their free agent guys. Corey Cunningham, don't think he's going to be here next year. Will Hernandez, see you later. See you on the next bus on the unemployment line. Matt Sakura, please don't come back here. I'll drive you away from the stadium if that is the case. And Nate Solder, the albatross, is finally gone. So for me, that's the guy that everybody didn't like, but he's gone now. So we don't have to worry about the ghost of Nate Solder. So let's go through these guys real quick. Ben Bredeson is going to be here because they used a 4th-round pick to acquire him last year. So he'll be here whether you like him or not. He's not great, but at least he's a depth player and probably can kick into guard. Billy Price, there's rumors that they're interested in possibly signing him as a backup. I would say, kick rocks, homie, starring. You did what you needed to do for us. But that, Nick Gates, a lot of people, let's get into Nick Gates for a minute. Nick Gates, I like Nick Gates a lot. But here's the thing. If he's not going to be ready this season, there's no point in cutting. There's no point in keeping him. I would cut him, get that money back, and say, "Hey, Nick, we're going to sign you. Maybe middle of the year next year when your leg is fully healthy. You don't need to rehab." Even Nick Gates has said he's possibly not going to be playing next year, so I wouldn't want to waste resources and money on a guy that may or may not be here next year, especially in our long-term plans. Now, I know we're talking about the O-line. There's going to be a ton of guys brought in here free agency. There's going to be a ton of undrafted free agents brought in, and there's going to be a couple guys at least drafted. I say definitely 2. I don't necessarily think you need to go back-to-back in the first round. I think you need to address the edge position as well, but we'll try to get to that going forward as we go. But for me, Nick Gates, you got to let him go. I'm sorry. It's been a great story, but to me, Bryce was good down the stretch. So if you want to bring him back, fine. We can bring him back. That'll be our center. Maybe the new guy, Bobby Johnson, can make him a better player. We'll see. But maybe you're right, Giant Opinion Sports. You bring him back, and then you have less to worry about in free agency in terms of bringing in a center. You already have a couple guys there. So we'll see. Shane Lemieux. Shane Lemieux is funny because I really like Shane Lemieux. I think people overlook him. You know, he did a lot in his rookie year. A guy who's a fifth-round pick who was basically picked for depth and was trying to become a center, guard, combo kind of guy, yet was injured last year. But remember, he took Will Hernandez's job, right? And Will Hernandez did not do anything to get it back. I know he was on COVID, he had an injury, but that says a lot to me about how they felt about Nick Gates last year, right? Not Nick Gates, excuse me, how they felt about Will Hernandez last year, or 2 years ago when Shane Lemieux was drafted. And then Shane Lemieux was coming in as the starting left guard this year, right? So think about that. And then he had a patella tendon injury in camp, which he probably should have had surgery early on, but they tried to push him through, and then he, had to have surgery anyways. But he's a guy I'm intrigued to see. I want to see what he does next year. I know he's rehabbing an injury, but, maybe he'll get stronger. Maybe he's a guy you can put in there. Again, these guys are not household names. They don't preclude you from drafting anybody. I don't want anyone to think, hey, Shane Lemieux, don't draft a guard. No. You bring in as many bodies as you can. You let the best five play, right? Or in this case, the best four, because Andrew Thomas is going to be the guy playing on the left side. So you bring in the best. You bring in the competition. You see who rises to the top, right? If you think that's Billy Price, and he outplays the rookie guard or rookie center you bring in, fine. Let it be Billy Price. There's going to be a lot of guys brought in here. Again, a 90-man roster needs to be filled out. So you're going to have a lot of players in here, guys you may never heard of, guys on one-year deals. This offensive line will be one of the things we hear about going forward, and we're going to get one of our staple players. We're going to get a couple guys in the draft, I do believe. I think 3 is max. I don't think any less than 2. We will, yes. Matt Pert was injured. We'll get to him in a second. But Shane Lemieux will be back because he got his surgery done early on. We say as a backup, Shane Lemieux can be good depth. I don't know about Pert. He probably will miss a good amount of time in rehabbing and have to keep Thomas healthy. Yes, Thomas did have some surgeries on his ankles. That does worry me a little bit, but let's keep going down the line. Again, Shane Lemieux, he's a guy that, think of him as David Deal. He's my David Deal of this draft, right? He's the guy that's a utility guy. Remember, David Deal was a 5th-round pick out of Southern Illinois. He played up and down the line, won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants, and had a pretty solid career. I think that's the way Shane Lemieux is going to go. I really do. I think he's going to be a utility player. He's going to be a guy you can shuffle in and out, and then he can possibly be a starter for you. Him and Ben Bredesen, for me, are solid young guards as depth pieces and spot starters if you need. Remember, if you're going to bring in these guys, this is what you need to do. Let the best players win. Let the best players win those jobs, right? Now, Matt Pert. He's an enigma to me because, you can cut him and no one's going to, shed a tear for him. You can keep him and see if he develops. Maybe you want to move him into guard. I don't know. It has to see how his ACL comes back. Right, he came back late in the season, blew out his knee, and then had to rehab it. So, Giant Opinion Sports, he's the best. Giant Opinion Sports loves Lemieux. He's the biggest reason we could run the ball in 2020. Yes, he has to work in his pass blocking a little bit, but he was a good run defender and he could pull. That was the main reason why they liked him over Hernandez. He was the ability to pull in the run game, which Hernandez could not do, right? He could not pull in the run game. He was basically a statue and basically couldn't catch a stunt. But Shane Lemieux could not only catch the stunt, but he could pull, which was a big thing for the Giants. And we'll see we'll see what happens, Brian. Again, everyone acts like you need Hall of Famers across the board. Someone sent me a Twitter thing, and I'm going to try to see if I can pull it up for you right now. Let's see. Here it is. It's Daniel Jeremiah. Daniel Jeremiah. If you don't know who he is a great evaluator on NFL Network, and he goes, thought of the day: you can build an O-line, a functional winning O-line, without spending 3-4 first-round picks. And then he goes, you don't need elite first-round picks at every position. You also can't have multiple tomato cans out there. You can build a solid 5 across the board with quality day 2 picks. So what I'm trying to tell people is that if you want to go first round lineman, second first rounder, defensive end or best defensive player available, you can do that. You can get guys in the second, second and third round who can still be contributors to your line, right? I don't, and not to mention free agent guys who can come in on 1 year prove-it deals, who may want to show something, who you may want to keep. Again, this is one of the positions where you're going to stack the positions, right? You're going to stack the positions. Don't be shocked if the Giants don't go O-line in the first round. That would be shocking to me because I think, Giant universe head would explode if that doesn't happen. But for me, again, you're going to bring in right now. How many guys did I name? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys that are on the team right now that they may need more. There's other roster players too. On another site, there is there's other guys on the roster like Levine Tololo. I didn't talk about those guys or anything like that. Like Corey Cunningham, Devery Henderson, Matt Takura, Kyle Murphy. But before we get into the other guys, let's jump into Kyle Murphy real quick. He's a guy that intrigues me. They liked him a lot for 2 years in a row. I was from Rhode Island. He was an undrafted guard who a lot of people liked as a sleeper guard, right? So I wouldn't exclude him from the mix. Jonathan Harrison was here last year. I wouldn't exclude him from the mix. You need bodies. Again, you need bodies, camp bodies, not to mention draft bodies, and being with the Titans cap space. Don't expect a lot of sexy moves in terms of the O-line, but maybe because a lot of guys like the Saints and Green Bay are way over the cap. Like we're talking $40 million over the cap. I mean, they're going to have some tough decisions to do, and maybe they cut a lineman that they really like Ben Bredeson. He was in line for the Ravens, but because the Ravens had a couple guys in front of him, he was expendable, and they were allowed to let him go for a 4th round pick. So that's why he was here. Last guy we'll talk about is my favorite player on the offensive line, Andrew Thomas. I liked him coming out in the draft. I thought he was the best tackle in the draft class. I still believe he's the best tackle in the draft class. A lot of people, Giant Opinion Sports, I know if they don't get a tackle in the first round, you'd be pissed, but it's not about us. It's about the team and what they think. So I know that we want the new shiny toy, and that's why I think a lot of people get mad on draft day because they lack of information or a guy that they don't like, that they deem a bust or whatever the case may be. We all want what we want, right? And if we don't get it, we're not happy. You can't satisfy everybody. But in the same vein, I don't think they're not going to draft a lineman at some point. You know what I mean? But I'm not saying, Giant Opinion Sports, I'm not saying I'm not against finding a tackle in free agency, but we're in a prime position to grab a tackle and a great prospect, cheap 5 years. I agree with you on that. Again, all I was saying is Daniel Jeremiah said you could find guys in the 2nd or 3rd round. If you look at a lot of the offensive lines around the league, they're built with 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round players. So this is a position that's very deep, and you can find guys if you dig hard enough. But getting back to Andrew Thomas, I thought he was the best one of the 4. I thought he was the safest one of the 4, and I thought he had the most upside of the 4 guys coming out. Again, Giant Opinion Sports, just because they don't pick a guy in the 1st round doesn't mean they're not going to have a player that comes through with them. Now, you want to have a chance at a bona fide player. That's why you want to be there. You know what I mean? You want your Andrew Thomas, and I think they're going to pick one. I don't think you need to pick one back-to-back in your 1st round picks. I think you have 9 picks. Maybe they'll get more than 9 picks. Maybe they'll get 10 or 11, and maybe we can get more bites of the apple with this thing. So, Andrew Thomas, I think I'm a little disappointed with the ankle surgery, so we'll see what happens with that. But he is my favorite player on the line. He's a left tackle that's going to give you left tackle type play. He's here for a long time. It would be great to have another right tackle to pair with him and let those guys be bookends for the next few years and then get your guard going forward. I thought they should have drafted Slater last year because that guy has versatility to play inside and outside. My favorite tackle right now is I like Cross as the best pure tackle, but I wouldn't mind Neal or Iquanu at number 5 as well. I think Charles Cross does fit what they're looking for. He's a great passer. That's what you need. You could teach run blocking later, but the Giants are, especially in the Brian Dable system, you need a good pass blocker, and he has great feet. And we'll figure it out. We'll see who they like the best come draft day. We don't know what they deem about any of these players. That's what's the best kept secret in the NFL, right? This is why we go through this process, because our evaluations as fans are not always the same as the evaluations as these players, right? It depends on what the guys, um, it depends on what these guys do. Giant Opinion Sports says, I've trusted these guys for 30 years, and I'm done with that. Well, guess what? In those 30 years, you've seen 4 Super Bowl trophies, and you've seen 5 Super Bowls. So, I mean, they can't be all bad, but right now we're in a bad time. Now I trust Joe Shane and Brian Dable a little bit more because they are not giant guys. They have outside eyes. So we'll see we have to let them play out what is going to play out, right? Again, I think Brent Brown is a guy that people need to look at as well. He's a player personnel guy from the Eagles, and he's pretty good. So that concludes the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to go a few more minutes before I bring people in. And we're going to hit the defensive side. You guys are welcome to join me on this Zoroaster evaluation on this Thursday live edition of the Hurry Up. So let's get into some defensive linemen real quick, and then I'll drop the link in the description section for you guys in the chat, so you guys can join me if you want. Brandon Brown is a strong pickup as an assistant GM. I'm just not a huge on faith. I want results. We all want results. Giant Opinion Sports, we all want results, but we have nothing to go on right now besides what we can see from Buffalo and what we hope that these guys are going to do with what they have said. Now, if they come through and the guys perform, well, hopefully we have a good team. We won't know. Again, this is a rebuilding year. We've got to let them put the pieces in place. We've got to be a little patient. We can be frustrated, but we also have to know that it's a process. Brandon Brown was a strong pickup as an assistant GM. I like the pickup. I like that it was from the Eagles, which means to me that Joe Shane does not care about the rivalries here and saying, I'm picking the best guy. I don't care if it's from the Cowboys, the Eagles, whatever team it is, or the Eagles or the Commanders. Someone said the Commanders yesterday, and I was taken aback. I was like, oh, are we talking about arena football? Then I realized we were talking about the Washington Commanders. I was like, what an arena football type name that they have, right? Jeff says, just have to make sure fans don't get their expectations too high. Have high expectations. Have whatever expectations you want. Just don't be disappointed if they're not met, with what we want. Because again, if it's a rebuild, we got to do what that says. Rebuild. Right. Now getting into the defensive line of this roster evaluation / going forward type of regime. Raymond Johnson, Dexter Lawrence, and Leonard Williams are on one of the roster sheets I have. Let's go down here and just make sure I got them correct. They also have David Moa, Austin Johnson, who's a free agent, Danny Shelton, who's a trash bag kind of guy. I wouldn't even have him grab my trash. That's how bad of a guy he is. But let's get back into it. For Raymond Johnson, I think that, I'm going to be, Giant Opinion Sports says, I'm going to be patient. More patient than 99% of the fan base. I've been screaming to stop firing coaches. Well, you got to fire coaches when they regress. Joe Judge, the wheels fell off the bus last year. You were better off not firing Pat Shermer and seeing what you had with Daniel Jones and then firing him. But hey, we'll see. This is a process. It's going to take 2.5 years to get to where we need to go. So now you have to be patient because now you have a new fan base in here. What they did with Pat Shermer was try to build quickly because they had Eli Manning there, so they thought they could get quick, shore this up real quick with some free agents and everything like that. They'd be a playoff contender. Then they tried to half-ass rebuild it with Pat Shermer, cost him his job. I think Joe Judge was on the right track, but then he lost. A few injuries came about, and I think someone said it best: if he had just kind of played out the string and didn't do some of the things he did down the stretch, he probably would still be here. But he's not, and so now we have to move forward with it, and we have to be patient. I know the fan base is going to be mad regardless of the wins, but at the end of the day, I'm going to give them 3 years. Yes, I'm going to come on streams and be like, this guy stinks and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I know in the back of my mind, let's let the process be the process. And I trust the guys that they brought in. We all wanted either Joe Shane or somebody of that ilk. So, but let's keep going. Raymond Johnson, I like. Guy who came in as an undrafted rookie free agent last year. I like his potential. I would like to see what Wink Martindale can do with him. Didn't do much, but did play with a lot of heart last year. Did bring a lot of chaos to the building. Chaos to the position. So I like him. Dexter Lawrence is the enigma here. I like Dexter Lawrence a lot. I think he's a fun player to watch. I think he's a trash talker. I think he's exactly what he needs, but I think he's playing out of position. I think he should be a nose guard. A guy whose weighs about 340 pounds. Let me give you his measurables right now. Um, he's about 6'4", 342 pounds. And he played nose guard at Clemson. They're trying to make him a defensive end in the 3-4. I don't think he's athletic enough to do that. I think with a guy like that, a guy that size, you need to have him bull rush in the middle. This will help allow a guy like Leonard Williams to get free and do things, do things that will, that will help free up a guy like Leonard Williams. Remember, Wink Martindale likes to scheme up pressure. I know that word is not, the best, but he likes to scheme up pressure. What that allows you to do is allows you to get guys one-on-one. And Dexter Lawrence will help in the run game. Look for the Giants to also add a guy in the draft or free agency. There's a guy from Buffalo that is on a docket that might be here as well. So you're going to need run stuffers. It's not just about rushing the passer, but if you get run stuffing guys, it'll help free up guys like Leonard Williams. I like Leonard Williams. I've always liked Leonard Williams. I never had a problem with him. No Jet fans had a problem with him, but I think that's because he underachieved in New York Jets. I think his draft status is definitely one of those things that, kind of got him in trouble because he was a 5th overall pick and he didn't live up to the expectations that many wanted a 5th-round pick. Plus, he also was next to a guy named Muhammad Wilkerson. To me, a guy like Muhammad Wilkerson, with his work ethic, kind of brought Leonard Williams down. But one of the things I liked about Leonard Williams was he ended up becoming a good player in terms of going to Richard Seymour. I thought that was one of the things I never thought I would see was him going to Richard Seymour and basically, not basically, but, essentially rectifying his game, right? Because people were questioning his desire, questioning his will, and he went to Richard Seymour, which on a contract here, which I thought was interesting because Richard Seymour is kind of built the same way as Leonard Williams. He's kind of he's kind of the same build, and so to go to a Hall of Famer and and get advice on how to flex double team and things like that. A guy that's been in the Bill Belichick system, a guy that's now going to the Hall of Fame. I thought that was a big step for Leonard Williams. And I think it translated on the field. This was last year in his contract year that he did that, and he also had 6.5 sacks this year, which isn't bad. Let's be real. It's not 6.5 sacks isn't bad. I mean, he's going to get anywhere from 6.5 to 11 sacks a year. That's the kind of guy he is. So for me, I like that. I like what he can do. I'd like that he, is a leader of defense and is a guy you can build around. A guy like Leonard Williams, don't take him for granted. He's a real player. He's a guy that he could be traded. I don't know if he will be. Again, it's all philosophy based. It's all whether or not this team, wants that particular player. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm always of a guy. You can't never have too many good players, and to me, he's a good player on defense, and I would keep him around. That's just me. But I think he again in New York with the Jets. I think he got a bad rap because of his draft status. But a guy like Leonard Williams, if you watch him athletically, he can do a lot of things. He reminds me of George Karlaftis in terms of putting him inside, outside. He can play a 4-3 defensive end. He can play a 3-4 end. But a guy like him needs to be able to get a one-on-one matchup because I trust him getting to the quarterback and look for him to create havoc in Wink Martindale defense, baby. But let's go on to the linebackers. Here is one of our weaker spots on the defense. You have Lorenzo Carter, who's not going to be here, and these guys are currently on the roster until March 13th. If you're not signed by then, you become a free agent. Lorenzo Carter, Azeez Ojulari, Quincy Roche, Ellison Smith, O'Shane Zimenez, Amari Cobb, Nico Lalos, Trent Harris, Blake Martinez, Tate Crowder, Reggie Ragland, Bernard McKinney, Jalen Smith, Carter Coughlin, Cam Brown, Justin Hilliard, and TJ Brunson. Wow, that was a long list of bums. Well, let's go down the list quickly. some of them I'll check off. Lorenzo Carter, I like him. Wouldn't bring him back much more on a cheap 1-year deal. I know he performed well last year going down the stretch. How much of that was he was on a contract year, but I do like his intangibles. 5 sacks was good in the last 4 or 5 games of the year. I like him. Azeez Ojulari is the guy that I can't wait to see. Can't wait for him to put on more muscle and get leaner and learn some more pass rush moves. This guy is going to be a force in that Wink Martindale defense. He brings a lot. He can play, put his hand in the dirt, stand up. I think you'll see him stand up a lot more in this defense. He'll be an inside blitzer. And he has a lot of leverage. I think, if they're bringing another defensive end like a Kayvon Thibodeau, George Karlakis, you're really going to see this guy take the next step. And they're going to have to eventually offensive lines, when you have 3 good guys in that defensive end, that defensive position, are going to have to pick and choose their poison. And I think Wink Martindale knows this. I think he's going to bang the table for a defensive playmaker, in the first round. And I don't blame him. We need to build this defense smartly. The next guy, Quincy Roche. I like Quincy Roche. Again, he did a lot of things last year. For a 6th round pick, I liked him coming out in the draft last year. I hope he's going to do more things this year. Let's see what he can do with a full off season under his belt. Again, he doesn't preclude you from drafting anybody in this draft. If you want to bring in, a linebacker like that, he doesn't stop you from doing that. I do like him. I think he is going to be a good rotational player with another guy named Ellerson Smith. Ellerson Smith came on the field. The thing I like about Ellerson Smith, last year he didn't play much football because of COVID, but then he had to get his feet wet because he didn't play in 2020 because the season got canceled due to COVID. So he didn't get to play in 2020. So the last film he had was in 2019, where he was pretty good. And UNI is his team. That sounds kind of funny. UNI, but UNI is where he came from. He's a guy that I like, height, weight, speed-wise. We'll see what he can do with a year under his belt and some coaching. Again, you never know with guys because they could get injured. But he was coached by Bryce Pop, the linebacker. He used to play back in the day for Green Bay and the Bills. So he got some good NFL coaching at UNI, and I would like to see him get more playing time. And I would like to see him right out the gate, in training camp. Remember, you're bringing in guys here now. It's never going to be too late to bring in a great pass rusher, and it would be great to have Azeez Ojulari, Quincy Roche, Ellerson Smith, and a draft pick. That would be great to see. I'll do the edge rushers right now. Shane Zimenez, I don't really want to see Shane Zimenez on the team anymore. Best case scenario, you keep him, and he keeps the bench warm for you. Best case is you can trade him and get a 5th round pick, but I think he's not here. I think he's more of a 4-3 defensive end. That's what he played at Old Dominion, and also Old Dominion's not the greatest competition in the world. So for him, I think he's had a lot of injuries. It's stunted his growth. Not also having a defensive shift change in his season coming in 2019, having 4.5 sacks, and then changing up your role in 2020 doesn't help you at all. So we'll see what happens with him. I don't think he's here. I don't really want him to be. I don't think I want him to be here. But again, this is this is one of those things where he's a guy that no one worries about, right? You can't really worry about keeping O'Shane Zimenez. Now, a couple guys in here play inside linebacker I'd like to touch on. One is the elephant in the room, and that is Blake Martinez. Blake Martinez is a solid middle linebacker, probably the best middle linebacker we've had since Antonio Pierce. I like him a lot. I think he can do many things. He's a decent blitzer. He's a decent coverage guy, not the greatest, but when you're dropping back into coverage in a Tampa 2 defense, that's what he can do. Now, with Wink Martindale defense, you need to have a guy who can cover, who has a little bit of sideline ability with him. So for me, let's see what they do. Let's see what they do with him. I think he can be cut, but I also believe you bring him back. He's a guy that is that good of a player that he's a borderline Pro Bowler. Every year he's a borderline Pro Bowler. He's had 150 tackles every year. He's been healthy, which is crazy. So for me, I don't just give up a tackling machine like that. If I can pair him with somebody else, that's great. I also think that he, we don't know what he can do in a Wink Martindale system. Again, I'll let Joe Shane and Brett Brown and Wink Martindale and Brian Dable kind of evaluate him and see what he brings to the table. But that's a guy I like to see. We've gone on 1 hour. I'm going to drop the link in the description section for StreamYards. Sub up if you can. If you can't, no big deal. We're just here talking football with the gang. Jeffrey, I know you're here. So if you want to call in, you're more than welcome to do that. But again, this is the Hurry Up Live, State of the Giants, State of the Union, kind of going through the roster right here. And then we'll get into a little combine work. So StreamYard link is in there. If anybody wants to call in and chat with me this morning, I know people are working, and so you may not be able to do that. I have some free time in between my job and my lunch hour, so I thought I'd, kind of give you a little State of the Union of the Giants while we go forward. So, as we move on, so Blake Martinez is the guy I like, but again, Wink Martindale will be the guy that kind of makes this decision happen. He has a high cap number, so I can see them getting rid of him. And being that you're at the number 7 position right now, you can even drop down if you really want and do something else. But to me, I think the Giants, the number 7 pick is in play in trade. I don't know if number 5 is. We'll find out. The combine is coming up, like I said, a week from today, so you'll get more rumors as we go through. But again, Blake Martinez, I like to keep, but if he's cut, I understand why. Injuries plus the high cap rate. The next guy I'd like to talk about quickly is Tay Crowder. Tay Crowder, I like. Had a decent season last year. There's a lot of things that were left to be desired last year in terms of his actual getting to the quarterback, blitzing, and kind of doing things along those lines. He put his head down and missed a couple tackles. That's my only problem. You can't be a linebacker and miss tackles. That is my one pet peeve about you. You can't miss tackles. You need to be able to wrap up when you get there. And he has great speed. I think he'll be a great nickel linebacker. Come in, do some blitzing off the corner, come in and change up the game. But here we are. I want to thank everybody that tuned in early. I know there's not many people, but hey, I'm going to do this for you guys. Come back and rewatch it later. If not, it is what it is, right? Next guy I'm going to mention is Justin Hilliard. He came from the 49ers. Not really much on him. He was, going to play, but then he got injured, so you can go about him. Carter Coughlin, I'd like to see. He was an edge rusher, but they moved him inside linebacker. I think they did that mostly because of his availability. You want to keep him around. The way you keep somebody around is changing up the position. I see there are 2 people in the chat. You're more welcome to call in, talk. We're talking State of the Union for the New York Giants. Last guy I'd like to talk about, Cam Brown and TJ Brunson. I'll lump them in together. TJ Brunson probably is not on this team. They drafted him out of South Carolina. He was a Gamecock. He was a decent player there, was a thumper type player. But I don't know if he's going to be on this team. He's injured back-to-back years. That doesn't really help you going forward, especially when you're trying to prove to guys that you can do something, Langston, my friend, wants me to talk about Malik because he went to college at Liberty, so he likes to talk about Malik Willis. I'll quickly do that for you, Langston. You're a good friend of mine. I hope you're listening. Malik Willis is a good quarterback. I think he's underrated. I think his stock will be blown up as we go through the combine and pro days, as he refines his game. Will the Giants take him? Who knows? We don't know. We really don't know about the quarterbacks because that's one thing that no one's going to know. The combine is going to be a true test to see if they open up. But going to my last, Cam Brown, I like. I want to see him inside. They said they were going to make him a pass rusher, and we haven't really seen much about him. So I would like to give him a shot, keep him on the team. He's another guy I like. But if he gets cut, no big deal. Next, we're going to defensive backs, and this will be it. The State of the Union, because that'll be it. Let me touch on the punters real quick before I get to the defense. Riley Dixon needs to go. See you later. Don't really like you. Graham Gano, best acquisition Dave Gettleman's made. Jamie Gillian. He's a guy that was brought in from Buffalo, and he's played on the Browns. I think that's the guy that's going to replace Riley Dixon. I really do. I really think that's your new punter because Riley Dixon is $2.5 million. We can get that back. But let's get quickly into the defensive backs. There's James Bradbury, Darnay Holmes, Adoree Jackson, Julian Love, Xavier McKinney, Aaron Robinson, Logan Ryan, Roderius Williams. James Bradbury, let's get let's get through this guy real quick. He is the elephant in the room, right? People either love him or hate him. You either love James Bradberry or you don't. Do I think he's going to fit this system? I have no idea. No clue. No real clue. I like him. I think you don't get rid of quality players. I really don't. But in the same vein, they need cap casualties, and we'll see what's going to happen. He's one of those guys that has been rumored to be traded. I would like for them to trade him, get something for him, not just cut him. I think you're going to see him traded to a team that needs a cornerback that plays more of his style. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in L.A. with the Chargers or with the Bengals, because obviously the Bengals need something. I would give him if I was the Bengals. I'd be calling down the door to get him. But we'll see. Again, solid cornerback, about 6'1", 210 pounds. He was matched up on the number one receiver this year. He had Adoree Jackson next to him, so I think you would put him in there. But if he's cut, a guy like Aaron Robinson needs to step up. I think Aaron Robinson can play both inside and outside. Very versatile player. Depends on what happens with Darnay Holmes. Darnay Holmes, I like a lot too. Great slot corner. I think he should be a return man this year. He's a guy that I would leave at the nickel position because I think that's where his best skill sets are. I would put Aaron Robinson outside and bump him inside the nickel if need be. Roderius Williams, he got a lot of playing time last year, but he injured his leg. They were relying on him as a sixth-round pick at Oklahoma State. He is a little bit more mature than most of the backs. I think he'll get a shot, some burn out there. There's a guy on this team from Albany. His name is Geron Williamson. He played last year as well. He was brought in here as a safety, and he as a cornerback, and he played pretty well. Jerome Henderson's being brought back as a DB coach, so I really trust Jerome Henderson to get these guys game ready. Now let's get into Julian Love. Love him. No pun intended. Think he's a guy that the Giants can build around. If they decide to get rid of Logan Ryan, I think he slips right into that Logan Ryan role. He's been here for 4 years. There's nothing to lose with this guy, and I think he's a part of the solution going forward. Not a problem. I think he takes over for Logan Ryan. I really think Logan Ryan was cooked last year, but people are going to bring him in and say keep him as a leader. I say, you know what? We're rebuilding. Let him try to latch on with a team that's winning. And let's get rid of that cap number to go down. Now, the next guy I'd like to talk about is a free agent, Jabril Peppers. I don't think he's long for this team. And that's not a bad thing. I think Xavier McKinney is going to take him over on that role. With Xavier McKinney, you get more range. You get a guy who can play center field more. You get a guy that's just overall a solid player in terms of Xavier McKinney. Jabril Peppers, I'm not signing more than a 1-year deal, not more than $7 million at max. If he thinks he can get more power to you. I know that I would say $5 million with incentives, with the possibility of an option year with the second year. But again, look for the Giants to probably bring in a safety as well, because you only have 4 on the roster that you deem good. And Logan Ryan, we already talked about. I don't really want to bring him back here. So that was a quick review of the team and the state of the Giants. This has been an edition of the Hurry Up. I wanted to just give you my takes on this, but before we do close out the show, let's talk a little combine. The combine is up next week, like I said earlier on the show, and this is going to be the showcase of the showcase, right? It's going to go combine, it's going to go free agency, and it's going to go pro days, and it's going to go draft. And these are the ways you can build up your stock. You have a crappy combine, well, guess what? Your pro day is going to elevate you. So these quarterbacks, when you're looking at quarterbacks, look at a few things. A, how well can they throw the ball? B, is the ball in the vicinity of the receiver? And why I say in the vicinity, because a lot of these guys that they're throwing to aren't their guys, and they aren't going to have much practice time to throw to these guys. So you just want to see the mechanics. You want to see if he can drop back. You want to see if these quarterbacks know how to take a ball under center. You want to see the velocity. You want to see how a number of throws that get on target, where the ball placement is, and you really won't get much about these quarterbacks other than the evaluation. It'll probably bump up their stack. The pro day is where you're really going to see if these quarterbacks stock rise or stock don't rise, because they'll be in their own backyard. They'll be able to kind of see that. I think the pro days are more important for the quarterbacks. I think the combine is more important for everybody else, because you kind of get a feel for it as well. Not that the pro day won't matter. The pro day kind of helps the guys who don't perform well at the combine or don't do certain exercises at the combine. So the pro day helps that way. So I'm not trying to say don't take a pro day, but what I am trying to say is the quarterback's pro days are more important than the combine. So if a guy has a bad combine, don't think about it. It's a chance for the teams to really meet them, interview them, kind of get to know them a little bit more, see that there's the guy that fits their system, kind of ask the questions that need to be asked, and it should be fun. We will have a combine recap show next Thursday about some of the players, some of the positions going on, kind of give you a preview of what's going to go down. Then Premium Takes is probably going to have a recap on Sunday of that week, and there's going to be a myriad of other shows going on that I'll be jumping on to. So if you want to follow me, you'll be able to do that. Again, thanks. If there's a few minutes left, if anybody wants to call in, we're talking NFL draft, we're talking combine, we're talking New York Giants. You're more than welcome to come in. I see there's a couple of you guys in the chat right now. Again, the link has already been dropped in there. Feel free. If nobody comes in the next few minutes, I'm going to close the show. But while I do that, again, when you're looking at the combine, please don't get too excited or too down if a guy doesn't test well. These are people and they have bad days. But being that I don't see anybody coming in, this has been another edition of the Hurry Up Live. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed my takes. Love to hear you in the comments. Thanks, people, for joining. Big Cass, Jeffrey, Giants Opinion Sports, The Miz. I hope I didn't, Mac, the Giant fan. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I will be back again with you next Thursday. Peace out.